Observatory Log, October 17th, 2024, Dr. Eleanor Reed. The stars are wrong tonight. I've triple-checked the calibration, run all standard diagnostics, even manually verified the alignment against last week's charts. The Sagittarius arm isn't where it should be. Not by much, we're talking microscopically small deviations, but in astronomy, precision is everything. A fraction of a degree here means billions of miles in actual space. This place has a way of making you feel small. Perched on MT Wilson at 9,000 feet, the Hawking Array is already physically isolated from civilization, but working the night shift amplifies that isolation tenfold. Just me, the equipment, and the vast, uncaring cosmos. Tonight, that vastness feels attentive, as though something out there has shifted its unfathomable gaze in our direction. The main terminal chimes. Alignment error. I've been getting these alerts sporadically for 3 nights now. System diagnostics reveal nothing, every component functioning normally. When I manually check the telescope's positioning, everything looks correct, and yet, I pull up last month's data on HD 162826, a star remarkably similar to our Sun, located 110 light-years away in the constellation Hercules. The spectral analysis shows subtle shifts in its emission patterns. Nothing dramatic, variations that would be dismissed as instrument error at most observatories. But the Hawking Array was specifically designed to detect quantum-level cosmic fluctuations. These aren't errors. The communication panel buzzes. The security system announces, perimeter breach, North Access Road. Right on schedule. I check my watch, 2:15 a.m. Captain Marcus Wells makes these surprise inspections monthly, always during my shift, always unannounced yet perfectly predictable. The military's involvement in what should be a purely scientific operation has never sat well with me. But this facility's funding comes from DARPA, not NASA. I hear the mechanical whir of the service elevator, then precise footsteps, military cadence, unmistakable even in civilian settings. The observation deck's door slides open. Dr. Reed. Wells nods formally. He's all sharp angles, crisp posture, precisely trimmed hair, eyes that calculate more than observe. Tonight, that formality seems heightened. Captain, I respond, gesturing to my monitors. Here to check up on the universe? He doesn't smile at my weak attempt at humor. That's unusual. Typically he manages a polite chuckle. Standard review, he says, tablet in hand. Any anomalies to report? The alignment error notification flashes again, then disappears when I look directly at it. Wells doesn't seem to notice. Nothing significant, I lie, unsure why. Something about his demeanor tonight makes me hesitant. Routine observations. Wells nods, inspecting the monitoring station with unusual thoroughness. He pauses at the primary spatial mapping terminal. This sector, he indicates the region I've been studying. You've allocated additional observation time here? Standard follow-up on stellar drift patterns, I explain, trying to sound casual. Nothing extraordinary. He makes a note. Your colleague, Dr. Wei, mentioned similar interests in her reports. That catches me off guard. Jia and I rarely coordinate our research this closely. Did she? I wasn't aware. Wells responds noncommittally. The array's primary mission remains focused on cataloging near-Earth objects. Other observations are secondary. Of course, I agree, though the Hawking's capabilities extend far beyond mere NEO tracking. Just following standard protocols for anomalous readings. Wells stiffens slightly. Anomalous? You just indicated everything was routine. I gesture to my monitor. Poor word choice. Statistical variations within expected parameters. He seems to accept this, continuing his inspection with mechanical precision. When he reaches the auxiliary communications system, he pauses longer than necessary, examining the equipment with unusual interest. Have you been receiving all scheduled broadcasts? He asks. Yes, I respond, confused. Weather reports, time synchronization, the standard packages. Wells nods. Ensure all alerts are properly logged, even seemingly minor ones. Always do, I assure him, though his emphasis on alerts feels pointed. The alignment error notifications aren't in my official logs. After completing his inspection, Wells stands by the observation deck's panoramic window, staring at the night sky. The moonless night makes the stars unusually bright, the Milky Way a glittering river across infinite blackness. Do you ever consider our position, Dr. Reed? He asks, uncharacteristically philosophical. In the universe? I join him at the window. Constantly. It's my job. Not scientifically, he clarifies. Our significance. The question feels loaded, especially coming from someone usually concerned only with protocols and security clearances. Astronomy has a way of putting human concerns in perspective. I offer carefully. Wells nods, still facing the stars. Perspective. Yes. He turns abruptly. I'll return next month. Document everything unusual, no matter how insignificant it might seem. After he leaves, the observation deck feels emptier, the silence deeper. I return to my station, pulling up the star charts again. The alignment error notification flashes once more. I check the emergency broadcast receiver, silent, normal. The automated weather alert system shows clear conditions. Nothing unusual in any official channels. Out of curiosity, I run a system-wide diagnostics looking specifically for the source of the alignment errors. The program completes, finding nothing. According to every protocol, there's no reason for these alerts. Yet as I overlay this week's stellar positioning data with archived charts, the discrepancies become unmistakable. Stars shifting by infinitesimal amounts, but shifting nonetheless. Not from their expected orbital patterns or cosmic drift, something else entirely. I notice something else. The shifts create a pattern, radiating outward from a specific point in deep space. As though something massive is warping space-time from a distance, but subtly, in ways our conventional physics can't explain. The terminal chimes again. Alignment error. This time, I trace the alert to its source code. The notification doesn't originate from our standard telescope alignment systems. It's coming from somewhere deeper in the array's operational core, from protocols I don't have access to. I glance at Captain Wells' tablet, forgotten on the console. A military-grade device, certainly locked, but perhaps containing answers. Ethical considerations aside, I need to understand what's happening. Before I can decide, my personal communicator buzzes with a text from Jia. Noticed anything strange with Sagittarius sector? Don't document it officially. Meet me before my shift tomorrow. Early. I look back at the star charts, at patterns subtly wrong in ways only someone intimately familiar with the night sky would notice. The cosmos isn't just vast tonight, it feels invasive, as though space itself is pressing against our atmosphere, testing for weaknesses. The alignment error notification flashes again, staying visible longer this time. The terminal adds a new message. Recalibration required. Outside, the stars continue their silent vigil, innumerable and ancient. But tonight, they feel too bright, too close. Too aware. End log entry. Observatory log, October 18th, 2024, Dr. Eleanor Reed. I arrived at the observatory 3 hours before my scheduled shift. The pre-dawn air bit with mountain chill as I made my way across the facility's courtyard. MT Wilson was silent except for the mechanical hum of rotating telescope domes, sentinels watching the fading stars. Zhao was already waiting in the auxiliary data center, hunched over multiple monitors displaying star charts and spectral analyses. She jumped slightly when I entered, then visibly relaxed upon recognizing me. "You didn't document the anomalies," she said. Not a question, but confirmation. "No." I placed a thermos of coffee between us. Something felt off about logging them. Captain Wells' visit last night didn't help. Jia nodded, turning back to her screens. Dark circles underlined her eyes, her normally immaculate hair pulled back haphazardly. She hadn't slept. Look at this. She pulled up a time-lapse composition of the Sagittarius sector, compiled over the past 3 weeks. Watch HD 189733b. I leaned closer. The exoplanet orbits its star every 2.2 days, well documented, thoroughly studied. But in Jia's time-lapse, its orbit showed progressive, subtle deviations. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Orbital mechanics don't just change. Not just this planet." Jia flipped through a dozen more examples. Every celestial body I've sampled shows the same pattern of deviation. Microscopic at first, but accelerating. She pulled up an image of distant galaxy, NGC 4414. This was captured last year. Then another image. This is from 2 nights ago. The difference was barely perceptible, but undeniable to trained eyes. The spiral structure showed minute distortion, as though viewed through subtly warped glass. Could it be equipment error? I asked, knowing the answer. I've checked everything 3 times, even used the backup systems. She rubbed her eyes. These aren't observational errors, Eleanor. The stars are literally shifting position. My communicator buzzed, a facility-wide notification. System maintenance scheduled. Expect intermittent alignment errors. I showed Ja the message. Convenient timing. They know, she whispered. Why else would Wells inspect the alignment system specifically? I hesitated before sharing. The error notifications, they're not coming from our standard alignment protocols. They're embedded deeper in the system. Ja wasn't surprised. There's a secondary observation protocol running parallel to ours. I found traces in the data architecture, military-grade encryption. They're monitoring the same anomalies, probably have been for months. The realization settled heavily between us. Whatever we were witnessing, someone else, someone with authority, already knew. I need to show you something else, Ja said, pulling a small notebook from her jacket. Not digital, actual paper. Smart, considering everything electronic in the facility was potentially monitored. She opened to pages of handwritten calculations. I've been tracking stellar drift against theoretical baselines. The deviations form a pattern. She pointed to a crude map she'd drawn. There's a directional aspect. Everything's shifting relative to a specific point in deep space. I studied her calculations. That's beyond the observable universe. Exactly. Her voice dropped lower. Something outside our cosmological horizon is affecting everything within it. The implications made my skin prickle. Astronomical anomalies were one thing. Physics-defying shifts in cosmic architecture were another entirely. There's more, Ja continued, flipping pages in her notebook. The alignment errors increase when we observe certain sectors directly. It's like observation itself triggers something. I finished. The quantum observer effect on a cosmic scale, a preposterous concept that nonetheless aligned with our data. My terminal chimed again, alignment error. This time I noticed something new. The alert was accompanied by a brief flicker across all screens, star charts shifting momentarily before snapping back. Ja saw it too. It's getting worse, she whispered. I checked the facility's emergency broadcast system, still silent. The world beyond our isolated mountain continued unaware. How many others know? I asked. Hard to say. I've contacted colleagues at other observatories, careful not to be specific. 3 have hinted at similar observations. 2 suddenly stopped responding altogether. The implication hung silently between us. Whatever this phenomenon was, discussing it openly carried risks. Ja pulled up another data set, radio telescope readings from the past month. There's something else. I'm detecting unusual radio emissions correlated with the visual anomalies. The spectrogram showed subtle patterns at frequencies typically dismissed as background noise. Viewed collectively, they formed rhythmic sequences, almost like encoded information. Could it be artificial? I asked. If it is, it's not human. Ja zoomed in on the pattern. This complexity, it's beyond our current signal processing capabilities. The auxiliary door slid open, startling us both. A maintenance technician glanced in, nodded apologetically, and continued down the corridor. Ja quickly switched her monitors to standard observation data. Not here, she whispered. Tonight, after second shift. The old meteorological station on the North Ridge. It's outside the facility's surveillance perimeter. I nodded, returning to my scheduled duties as though our world hadn't just fundamentally shifted beneath us. Throughout my shift, the alignment errors continued, more frequent, lasting longer. Twice, I caught subtle distortions in real-time observations, stars momentarily blurring as though space itself trembled. The standard emergency broadcast test sounded at noon, the familiar tones now carrying ominous undertones. This is a test of the emergency alert system. No action is required, but action seemed increasingly necessary. Whatever cosmic realignment was occurring, its acceleration suggested approaching crisis. Near the end of my shift, I decided to test a theory. I aimed the auxiliary telescope directly at the coordinates Ja had identified as the anomaly's apparent source. The moment I locked on target, every system in my station flashed with alerts. Alignment error. Recalibration required. Observation protocol violation. The last alert was new and revealing. I quickly redirected the telescope, and the alerts ceased immediately. Whatever lay at those coordinates, we weren't supposed to look directly at it. As I was logging off, Captain Wells appeared again, twice in 2 days, breaking his monthly pattern. Dr. Reed, he nodded formally. I understand there were some system issues during your shift. His phrasing was careful, but his intensity betrayed concern. Minor alignment errors, I replied casually. The maintenance notification explained it. Yes. He studied me carefully. Maintenance. Have you spoken with Dr. Wei today? The question seemed innocent enough, but instinct told me to be cautious. Briefly during shift change. Why do you ask? Her access credentials were used in some restricted areas of the system last night. I maintained a neutral expression. Perhaps part of her research parameters. You'd have to ask her. Wells nodded slowly. I intend to. By the way, we'll have a specialist arriving tomorrow, Dr. Morris from Langley. Standard protocol review. The mention of Langley, CIA headquarters, confirmed our suspicions about military interest in the anomalies. After Wells left, I sent Jia a coded warning through our personal channels. Weather monitoring suggests atmospheric disturbances tonight. North Ridge observations may be compromised. Within minutes, she responded. Understood. Alternative site selected. Coordinates forthcoming. As I left the facility, the sunset painted Mount Wilson in blood-red hues. Above, the first stars emerged, ancient light reaching us after journeys of incomprehensible distance. But tonight, their familiar patterns seemed subtly wrong, as though the cosmic tapestry was being rewoven by unseen hands. I stopped at the edge of the access road, gazing upward. For a brief, disorienting moment, the stars appeared to pulse in unison, a vast, coordinated network stretching across infinity. Then everything snapped back to normal, leaving me questioning my own perception. My phone buzzed with Gia's coordinates and a simple message. Bring your journal. Nothing electronic. As darkness descended fully, I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched, not by security cameras or government agents, but by something vast and patient, observing us from beyond the boundaries of observable reality. Something that had, perhaps, finally noticed us noticing it. Log entry. Audio recording, Dr. Eleanor Reed's personal recorder, October 19th, 2024. I'm recording this on my ancient handheld recorder, no digital footprint, no network connection. Even as a scientist accustomed to evidence and documentation, I find myself adopting the paranoid practices of conspiracy theorists. But after last night, paranoia seems increasingly rational. Gia's alternative meeting location was the abandoned meteorological station in Shadow Canyon, 2 miles from the main observatory complex. Built in the 1970s and decommissioned when satellite weather tracking rendered it obsolete, it's little more than a concrete bunker with rusted equipment and graffiti-covered walls. Perfect for conversations meant to remain unheard. I arrived at 11:30 p.m., navigating the steep trail by flashlight. The October mountain air bit through my jacket as clouds gathered overhead, obscuring the stars I've spent my life studying. Perhaps it was better not to see them, not to witness their wrongness. Jia was already there, her face illuminated by the pale glow of a battery-powered lantern. She wasn't alone. This is Tyler Chin, she introduced the young man beside her. Signals analysis specialist. Third shift. Chin nodded nervously, glancing repeatedly at the entrance. We should keep this brief, he said. I accessed some secure communications logs. If they trace it back to me. What did you find? I asked. He pulled out a notebook similar to Gia's, paper, handwritten, unconnected. The facility has been receiving encrypted transmissions from multiple government agencies. NSA, Pentagon, even NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office. PDCO handles asteroids and near-Earth objects, I noted. Potential impact threats. Exactly, Chin replied. But there's nothing in the public alert system about any approaching objects. Whatever they're tracking, they're keeping it completely classified. Jia spread her star charts across a dusty table. It's not an asteroid, she said quietly. It's something far less tangible. She pointed to her calculations. I've triangulated observational data from multiple sources. The anomalies aren't just affecting visible light observations, they're appearing across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Gamma rays, X-rays, radio waves, all showing coordinated disturbances. That's impossible, I whispered. There's no natural phenomenon that could affect all wavelengths simultaneously across such vast distances. Unless space itself is being manipulated, Chin suggested. Some kind of cosmological scale warping. The implications were staggering. Theories about dark energy, cosmic inflation, and the fundamental fabric of space-time all assumed gradual, uniform changes over billions of years. Nothing in modern physics could explain what we were witnessing, a real-time restructuring of cosmic architecture. I found something else, Jia continued, unfolding a larger star chart. The pattern of stellar displacement forms a geometric progression, radiating outward from that same coordinate point beyond the observable universe. It's accelerating, with each new wave covering greater distances in less time. Chin pulled out his own notes. I've been monitoring deep space radio signals. 2 days ago, I detected a momentary blackout. All signals from a specific sector simply vanished for 3.7 seconds before returning. Equipment malfunction? I suggested. Multiple redundant systems recorded the same event, he replied. It wasn't our equipment failing. It was the signals themselves, like that entire section of space briefly ceased to exist. A sudden chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the night air. If these distortions continue accelerating at the current rate, they'll reach our solar system within weeks, Jia finished grimly. The bunker's old lights flickered overhead, once, twice, then died completely. Our battery lantern remained the only illumination. Just old wiring, Chin reassured, though none of us believed it. My phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Severe weather warning. Unexpected atmospheric disturbance detected. Seeking shelter advised. I showed the others. There wasn't any storm forecast. It's not weather, Jia said, moving to the bunker's small window. Look. Outside, the cloud cover had parted directly overhead, revealing a circle of night sky. But the stars visible through this opening were wrong. Constellations appeared compressed, as though viewed through a distorting lens. For several seconds, we watched in stunned silence as familiar patterns warped subtly, stars seeming to shift position before our eyes. Then something massive moved across the opening. Not a cloud, not an aircraft, but a visual distortion that momentarily eclipsed multiple star systems simultaneously. The displacement was vast, suggesting an object or phenomenon of impossible scale. Did you? I began. Yes, Jia whispered. Whatever it was, it would have to be. Astronomical in size, Chin finished. Larger than our solar system. The phenomenon lasted only seconds before the clouds closed again, but its impact was profound. We had all witnessed something that couldn't, exist according to our understanding of physics. Our phones buzzed simultaneously with another alert. Temporary communications disruption due to atmospheric disturbances. Stand by for further updates. Chin checked his signal. Cell service is down, but this alert came through. Priority emergency broadcast system, I explained. It bypasses standard networks. But who sent it? Jia asked. And why classify an atmospheric disturbance when what we just saw was clearly cosmic in origin? Before anyone could answer, a blinding light swept across the bunker's windows, headlights, approaching fast along the service road that shouldn't have been vehicle accessible. Security patrol, Chin whispered, hastily gathering his notes. They can't know we're here, Jia insisted. This location isn't monitored. I peered through the grimy window. 2 black SUVs with government plates had stopped at the trailhead below. Men in tactical gear emerged, carrying what looked like scientific equipment alongside standard weapons. They're not here for us, I realized. They're taking readings of the anomaly we just witnessed. We doused our lantern and retreated to the back of the bunker, watching through a narrow window as the team deployed sophisticated monitoring equipment. Their efficiency suggested this wasn't their first response to these phenomena. Chen's phone buzzed again, a different alert tone. He checked it, his face paling in the darkness. What is it? I whispered. Internal facility notice, he showed us the screen. All astronomical observations suspended for the next 24 hours. Full facility shutdown for systems recalibration and scheduled maintenance. They're preventing us from documenting whatever's happening, Jia murmured. Through the window, I noticed something disturbing about the response team below. They worked with practiced coordination, but their movements carried an undercurrent of tension, almost fear. These weren't routine measurements they were taking. One of the team looked up suddenly, directly toward our bunker. I pulled back from the window, heart pounding. We need to leave, I whispered. Separately, using different trails. We quickly exchanged contact protocols, burner phones, dead drops, offline methods that felt absurdly paranoid just days ago, but now seemed prudent. As we prepared to depart, the bunker's ancient radio, which shouldn't have been operational, crackled to life. Through bursts of static, a voice emerged. All personnel, immediate lockdown, positional shift detected, reality cohesion at risk. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving us in silence. Chin was the first to speak. That wasn't a weather service broadcast. No, I agreed. That sounded military. Or worse. Jia had turned deathly pale. The term reality cohesion, It's theoretical physics jargon for maintaining the stability of space-time. If they're monitoring that, we didn't need her to finish the thought. Whatever was occurring went beyond astronomical anomalies. It threatened the fundamental structure of reality itself. We separated after that, each taking different routes back to the facility. The mountain paths were eerily quiet, wildlife seemingly absent. Above, the cloud cover remained impenetrable except for occasional breaks where the twisted constellations glared through like malevolent eyes. When I returned to my quarters, I found a facility-wide notification waiting. Mandatory meeting, 0800 hours. All scientific personnel. Visitor briefing. The visitor would undoubtedly be Dr. Morris from Langley, the specialist Wells had mentioned. What troubled me most was the final sentence of the notification. Reminder, all observational anomalies must be reported immediately. Independent investigation of system errors is strictly prohibited. They knew. They were watching. And they were afraid. Whatever vast cosmic machinery had begun shifting around us, one thing became terrifyingly clear. We weren't meant to notice it. And now that we had, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd drawn attention from something that operated on scales where human existence was less than insignificant, a microscopic flaw suddenly visible to an incomprehensible eye, an eye that might blink us away without a thought. End recording. Observatory log, October 20th, 2024, Dr. Eleanor Reed. The mandatory meeting was a masterclass in saying nothing while appearing to say everything. Dr. Morris from Langley, a thin, pale man with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual look of calculation, spent 45 minutes explaining standard protocol updates, equipment maintenance schedules, and revised reporting procedures. Not once did he mention the anomalies we'd all witnessed, the facility-wide blackout, or the strange atmospheric disturbance. It was as though the past week had been completely normal, a fiction maintained with such conviction that I almost questioned my own memories. Almost. All observational data must be channeled through the new verification protocols, Morris explained, his voice a practiced monotone. This will eliminate system errors and prevent false anomaly reports. Translation: they're implementing additional filters to hide whatever's happening. Additionally, all external communications regarding observatory data must receive prior approval through appropriate channels. Translation: don't tell anyone what you've seen. Captain Wells stood silently at the back of the room, watching not Dr. Morris, but us, the assembled scientists and technicians. Gauging reactions. Identifying threats. After the meeting, I returned to my station to find my access permissions subtly altered. Certain deep space sectors were now listed as scheduled maintenance, temporarily unavailable. The coordinates matched exactly with the regions where we detected the most pronounced anomalies. My terminal chimed with the now familiar notification, alignment error. But when I checked the system, the error log was empty. The notification existed in isolation, disconnected from any traceable source. I initiated a standard stellar observation protocol, focusing on a routine sector that should have been unaffected by the restrictions. As the telescope aligned, I noticed something strange in the raw data feed, a faint pattern underlying the standard signals. Not visual, but embedded in the radio spectrum emissions. Curious, I isolated the pattern and enhanced it. The result was a rhythmic sequence of pulses, too regular to be natural, too complex to be interference. Finding something interesting, Dr. Reed? I flinched, minimizing the screen. Dr. Morris stood behind me, his expression neutral, but eyes sharp behind those wire-rimmed glasses. Standard signal analysis, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Solar radiation effects on radio emissions. Of course. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Though I believe the facility priorities have shifted toward near-Earth observations rather than deep field analysis. The warning was clear. Just establishing baseline readings, I explained. For comparison purposes. Morris nodded, apparently satisfied. Baselines are important. They tell us when things deviate. He glanced at my terminal. I understand you've documented several alignment errors recently. System notifications, I said carefully. Maintenance has been addressing them. Yes. Maintenance. He adjusted his glasses. Captain Wells speaks highly of your attention to detail, Doctor. Your observational skills. It would be valuable to have someone of your expertise focused on the appropriate sectors. After he left, the implied threat lingered. Focus where we tell you, or face consequences. I waited until my scheduled break before sending a coded message to Jia. Lunch at the South Cafeteria? The view is better there. It was our established signal for meeting at the small observatory library, the one place without electronic surveillance due to the ancient paper journals and reference materials housed there. When I arrived, Zhao was already browsing through a massive stellar atlas from the 1980s, a perfect cover for conversation. "They've locked me out of the radio telescope array," she whispered, turning pages casually. "No explanation, just scheduled maintenance. Same with the deep field sectors in my division," I confirmed. "But I found something before they restricted access." I showed her the small notebook where I'd sketched the pattern I'd discovered. "It's embedded in the radio emissions from multiple sectors, always the same sequence, repeated at precisely timed intervals." Jia studied the pattern. "This isn't random noise. It's structured, almost like a signal," I finished. "Have you run it through decryption?" she asked. I shook my head. "Can't risk it on the facility systems. They're monitoring everything. I might have a solution." She glanced around before continuing. "Tyler Chin has set up an isolated system in his quarters, completely offline, cobbled together from personal equipment. No way for them to monitor it. The risk was enormous, but the alternative, ignoring what might be the most significant discovery in human history, was unthinkable." "Get me access," I whispered. Jia nodded. Midnight, after the security patrol cycle. When I returned to my station, an emergency alert broadcast echoed through the facility. "Attention all personnel. Scheduled communication blackout tonight from 2300 to 0400 hours. All external communications will be unavailable. This is a planned maintenance exercise." The timing was too convenient, precisely when we'd planned to analyze the signal. Someone knew. But how? I checked my personal equipment for tampering, but found nothing obvious. Either way, we couldn't postpone. Whatever was happening in the cosmos was accelerating. We might not have another chance. At 23:45, I made my way to Chen's quarters in the residential wing. The facility was eerily quiet, most staff asleep or confined to essential monitoring stations. The communication blackout had cast the corridors in emergency lighting, bathing everything in dim red. Chen's door opened before I could knock. "Quickly," he whispered, ushering me inside. His room had been transformed into a makeshift lab, computers, signal processors, and monitoring equipment arranged in a chaotic but functional array. Zhao was already there, working on a heavily modified laptop. "How did you get all this past security?" I asked. "Piece by piece, over months," Chen explained. I told them I was a gaming enthusiast. He took the notebook where I'd recorded the signal pattern. "This is extraordinary," he murmured, inputting the sequence into his system. "It's not just a single frequency, it's layered across the spectrum." On his screen, the pattern expanded into a complex, multidimensional structure. What had appeared as a simple rhythmic sequence revealed itself as something far more sophisticated. "It's a language," Zhao whispered, "or at least a structured communication system." Chen's analysis confirmed it. The pattern contained mathematical relationships too precise to be accidental. Whatever we were detecting, it was intentional, designed to be recognized by any intelligence capable of observing across multiple frequencies simultaneously. "Can we decode it?" I asked. "Not fully, not yet," Chen admitted. "But the mathematics suggest basic principles. It's like cosmic architecture, instructions for understanding something much larger." Jia pointed to a recurring element in the pattern. "This sequence, it's counting, but not in any base system we use. It's exponential, accelerating." "A countdown," I suggested. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. "To what?" Chen finally asked. Before anyone could answer, every screen in his makeshift lab flickered simultaneously. The emergency lights pulsed once, twice, then stabilized. "That's not possible," Chen whispered. "These systems aren't connected to the facility network." Yet his equipment responded as though receiving an external signal, the same pattern we'd been analyzing, but stronger now, more insistent. The mathematical sequence expanded across his screens, self-organizing into structures that seemed to fold through dimensions our minds couldn't fully comprehend. "It's responding to our analysis," Zhao realized. "It knows we're listening." A new emergency alert sounded through the facility. "Attention all personnel. Unexpected radiation anomaly detected. Proceed to designated shelter areas." This is not a drill. Chen's equipment began displaying readings from around the observatory, data it shouldn't have had access to. Every sensor was registering massive fluctuations across the electromagnetic spectrum. "Something's coming," he whispered. We rushed to the window. Outside, the night sky had changed. The stars were visibly shifting position, not subtly as before, but in coordinated patterns that defied all natural explanation. Constellations twisted into new configurations, pulsing in rhythm with the signal we'd been analyzing. For a brief, terrible moment, a vast shadow seemed to pass across the entire visible sky, not an object, but an absence, a void that moved with purpose. My phone buzzed with an alert different from the facility broadcast. Astronomical observation restriction in effect. All personnel must cease direct observation of night sky phenomena. Compliance is mandatory. As quickly as it appeared, the cosmic display subsided. The stars settled back into their positions, almost but not quite where they had been. To the untrained eye, nothing would seem amiss. But we knew better. They're hiding it, I said, my voice barely audible. Manipulating our data, restricting our observations, classifying what we can see with our own eyes. But why? Chin asked. If something this significant is happening, shouldn't humanity be preparing? Gia's face had gone pale. Unless preparation is pointless. Unless what we're witnessing is beyond our ability to comprehend, let alone control. A sharp knock at the door silenced us. Chin quickly covered his equipment with a blanket as I moved to answer. Captain Wells stood in the corridor, his expression unreadable. Dr. Reed, you're needed at the main observatory. Immediately. At this hour? During a security alert? Especially during this alert. His eyes moved past me, taking in the room. Dr. Morris has specific questions about your recent observations. Questions that require your particular insight. As I followed Wells through the emergency-lit corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that two vastly different forces were taking an interest in our insignificant lives. One cosmic and incomprehensible, the other all too human and dangerous. Between those forces, we were less than dust motes, tiny consciousnesses struggling to comprehend a reality that was beginning to unravel around us. And somewhere in the void beyond our observation, something ancient and vast had taken notice of our noticing. End log entry. Audio recording, Dr. Eleanor Reed's personal recorder, October 21st, 2024. I'm recording this at 3:47 a.m., having just returned from the most disturbing meeting of my career. My quarters have been searched subtly but unmistakably. The corner of the rug slightly askew. Books rearranged by millimeters. They're looking for my notes, my records of what I've seen. But they won't find them. Not here. The meeting with Dr. Morris wasn't what I expected. Captain Wells escorted me to the facility's secure conference room, a windowless space typically reserved for classified briefings. Morris was waiting with 3 monitors displaying data I recognized immediately, my own observations from the past week, including files I deliberately kept offline. Please sit. Morris gestured to the chair across from him. Wells remained standing by the door, more sentry than participant. You've been quite thorough in your observations, Dr. Reed, Morris began, adjusting his glasses. More thorough than your official reports would suggest. I stayed silent, calculating my response. Denial would be pointless. They clearly had access to my data. Your work on the stellar displacement patterns is particularly interesting, he continued, bringing up my calculations on the central screen. Few astronomers would have noticed such subtle shifts, let alone documented them with this precision. It wasn't the reprimand I'd anticipated. Morris almost sounded appreciative. Astronomical observation is my specialty, I replied carefully. Indeed, he nodded. And you've observed something extraordinary, haven't you? Something beyond conventional explanation. The directness of his question caught me off guard. The data suggests anomalies worthy of investigation. Morris leaned forward. Let's dispense with euphemisms, Dr. Reed. You've detected cosmic-scale spatial distortions originating from beyond the observable universe. You've documented progressive acceleration in these distortions, and you've identified a pattern suggesting intelligent design rather than natural phenomena. His blunt summary silenced me. They knew everything. What you don't know, Morris continued, is that these observations were anticipated. The Hawking array was designed specifically to detect them. The revelation hit me like physical force. You knew this would happen? Not precisely what, but that something would. He pulled up a classified document on the screen. The original proposal for the Hawking array, dated 2017. This facility was never primarily about conventional astronomy. It's a monitoring station for cosmological integrity. Cosmological integrity, I repeated. The phrase was absurd, yet somehow terrifyingly appropriate. For decades, Theoretical physicists have speculated about instabilities in our universe's fundamental structure, Morris explained. Like microscopic cracks in a dam, invisible until they begin to spread. The Hawking array was built to watch for those cracks. I thought of the alignment errors, the shifting stars, the pattern of distortions radiating outward from a single point. And now they're spreading. Morris nodded grimly. Faster than anticipated. The question is why? He brought up my most recent observations, the ones showing accelerated displacement after direct telescopic focus on the anomaly's origin point. You've already stumbled upon the answer, though you might not have recognized its significance. The observer effect, I whispered, pieces falling into place. Our observation is affecting the phenomenon. Precisely. Morris looked genuinely impressed. Quantum mechanics tells us that observation can influence the behavior of subatomic particles. What we're witnessing suggests similar principles may apply at cosmic scales. The implications were staggering and terrifying. You're saying that by watching these anomalies, we're making them worse. Not just worse. We may be causing them to propagate toward us specifically. Morris removed his glasses, suddenly looking tired. Think of it as drawing attention. Your focus on a crowded room might catch someone's eye, causing them to focus back on you. Someone, I challenged. These are cosmic phenomena, not conscious entities. Morris and Wells exchanged glances that raised the hair on my neck. That assumption, Morris said carefully, may be premature. Before I could process this, Wells stepped forward, breaking his silence. Dr. Reed, what we're about to share is classified beyond top secret. Disclosure would constitute treason against not just the United States, but humanity itself. Morris nodded to him, then continued. The Hawking array is one of 12 identical facilities positioned globally. For the past 7 months, all 12 have detected progressively intensifying spatial anomalies. Last week, the Atacama facility in Chile focused 3 continuous days of concentrated observation on the origin coordinates. He pulled up a final image, satellite footage of the Chilean Andes, where a research facility should have been stood a perfect hemisphere of emptiness. Not destruction, absence. 2 days after this image was captured, the entire region around the facility experienced a localized reality failure. 11 square kilometers simply disconnected from our space-time continuum. I stared at the image, my scientific mind rejecting what my eyes confirmed. That's not possible. 342 people ceased to exist, Wells said flatly, along with the land, atmosphere, and physical matter they occupied. No explosion, no debris, just a perfect excision from reality. The Chilean government reported a landslide, Morris added. Some cover stories are easier than others. I struggled to process the horror of what they were describing. And you believe this was caused by their observation of the anomaly? We know it was. Morris's voice hardened. Their final transmission included mathematical proof. The longer and more intensely they observed the anomaly's source, the faster it propagated toward them. They recognized the danger too late. So you're restricting our observations, I realized. The access limitations, the blackouts, you're trying to prevent the same thing happening here. While still gathering essential data, Morris confirmed. It's a delicate balance. Too much observation accelerates the process. Too little leaves us blind to an existential threat. What exactly is the threat? I asked. What's causing these anomalies? Again, that troubled exchange of glances between Wells and Morris. We don't know with certainty, Morris finally admitted. But the leading theory involves cosmic-scale entities, intelligences operating beyond our dimensional framework. Beings to whom our universe might be the equivalent of a petri dish. And we've caught their attention, I whispered, the true horror dawning on me. Or they've always been there, Wells suggested, watching the experiment unfold. Until recently, we were too insignificant to notice. Morris nodded. What's changed is our capacity for observation. The more powerful our instruments become, the more we can perceive, and the more we might appear on their radar. So what do we do? I asked. Stop all astronomical observation? Return to the Dark Ages? Of course not, Morris said. But we need to be strategic, selective, and we need the best minds working on understanding this phenomenon. He leaned forward. Minds like yours, Dr. Reed. The implied offer hung in the air. That's why I'm here, he continued. Not to silence you, but to recruit you. With appropriate security clearance, of course. And my colleagues? I asked, thinking of Jia and Chen. They've seen the same things I have. Dr. Wei is being approached separately, Morris replied. As for Mr. Chun, his unauthorized equipment presents complications. Captain Wells will handle that situation. The coldness of his tone concerned me. Handle how? That's not your concern, Wells interjected. I stood abruptly. It absolutely is my concern. These are my colleagues, people I've worked with for years. If you think I'll cooperate while you handle them. Dr. Reed, Morris interrupted, his voice softening. No one is threatening your colleagues. But this situation requires absolute discretion and protocol compliance. Lives depend on it, potentially all lives. I left that meeting with a new security clearance, access to the facility's true purpose, and a sickening sense that I was being manipulated by forces almost as incomprehensible as the cosmic anomalies themselves. When I tried to find Chen afterward, his quarters were empty, all personal items gone, equipment removed. The official explanation: reassignment to another facility. Jiao was nowhere to be found either. Now, alone in my quarters, I'm left wondering which is more disturbing: the cosmic entities that might be noticing our existence, or the human ones willing to make people disappear to keep that knowledge contained. The stars continue shifting outside my window. With each passing night, the patterns grow more noticeably wrong. And somewhere in the void beyond those stars, something vast and ancient may be turning its attention toward our insignificant corner of creation, drawn by our audacity to look back, to observe the observer. End recording. Personal Journal, Dr. Eleanor Reed, October 23, 2024, 1:17 a.m. I've crossed a line tonight that I can't uncross. There's no turning back after what I've discovered. Sleep has been impossible since Morris's revelation about the Chilean facility. The image of that perfect hemisphere of nothingness haunts me. 11 square kilometers of reality simply excised, as if our universe were just paper that something had cut with cosmic scissors. 342 people. Gone. Not dead, erased. After tossing in bed for hours, I made a decision. If Morris truly wanted my expertise, they would have shared everything. The selective disclosure, the disappearance of Chun, Jia's continued absence, it all pointed to deeper secrets being kept from me. My new security clearance gave me access to sections of our database I'd never seen before, but I suspected the truly classified materials would be stored offline. There's a secure server room on sublevel B that Captain Wells visits daily. I've noticed the pattern. 2:15 a.m., like clockwork, he makes his rounds when the night shift is at minimum staffing. Tonight, I was ready. I created a diversion in the East Wing Observatory, a simple programming error that triggered multiple alignment alerts simultaneously. As predicted, the night supervisor directed the skeleton crew to verify the alerts, leaving the administrative section temporarily unattended. 20 minutes. That's all I had. The security panel outside the server room required both keycard and biometric authentication. My clearance got me through the first, but not the second. Fortunately, I'd prepared for this. 3 days ago, I'd accidentally spilled coffee near Wells during a briefing. The napkins I offered to help clean up provided perfect lifting surfaces for fingerprints. Creating a gelatin mold was basic chemistry, a skill from an undergraduate forensics elective I never imagined would prove so useful. The fingerprint worked. I was in. The room housed dozens of servers, but a separate isolation cabinet in the corner drew my attention. Standalone system, air-gapped from the main network, exactly where I'd keep data too sensitive for network storage. The cabinet required another fingerprint scan, but Wells's print worked again. Inside, a single terminal glowed with waiting command prompts. The file structure was unlike anything I'd seen, not standard government or military organization, but something proprietary. After several attempts to navigate the unfamiliar system, I found a directory labeled Watchman Initiative. What I discovered there has shattered every assumption I've held about our work, about reality itself. The Hawking Array isn't one of 12 observatories. It's one of 11 now, originally 12 until Chile was erased. But these facilities aren't simply passive observation posts. Each houses technology that actively manipulates space-time at the quantum level, creating what the documents called dimensional apertures. They're not just telescopes, they're windows. And the military hasn't just been monitoring these cosmic anomalies, they've been probing them, deliberately sending signals into whatever exists beyond the boundaries of our observable universe, playing cosmic Marco Polo with entities they barely comprehend. The most disturbing file was labeled Correspondence Attempts. It contained records of mathematical sequences transmitted toward coordinates where spatial anomalies had been detected, and responses, patterns sent back that bore unmistakable signs of intelligent origin. We've been talking to them. Whoever, whatever, exists out there in the spaces between realities. And based on the escalating frequency of these exchanges, they've been increasingly interested in us. A file marked Observer Threshold Theory explained what Morris only hinted at. The hypothesis that these entities exist in dimensions perpendicular to our own, perceiving our universe from outside its boundaries. Our increasingly sophisticated methods of cosmic observation have created a kind of symmetry. As we develop the capacity to detect evidence of their existence, they become more capable of perceiving ours. But the document concluded with something Morris never mentioned. Confirmation of bidirectional observation suggests potential for bidirectional interaction. Proceed with Protocol Icarus. Protocol Icarus. The name sent a chill through me even before I opened the file. In Greek mythology, Icarus flew too close to the sun, his ambition exceeding the limitations of his wax wings. The metaphor was ominously appropriate. The protocol outlined a deliberate intensification of observational focus from all 11 remaining arrays, coordinated to triangulate the exact dimensional coordinates of whatever exists beyond our universe's boundary. Not just passive detection, active engagement. They're trying to establish direct contact. The file contained dissenting opinions from 3 scientists, including Dr. Wei. Their arguments were redacted, but the summary was clear. Protocol Icarus represented an unacceptable risk given the fate of the Chilean facility. The final notation, dated just yesterday, indicated that all internal opposition has been addressed and removed from operational authority. Addressed and removed. Like Chun. Like Jia. I was so engrossed in these discoveries that I nearly missed my window to exit undetected. As I hurriedly closed files and prepared to leave, an emergency broadcast system alert flashed across the terminal. Gravitational anomaly detected. Location, grid sector 7J. Intensity, critical. Estimated time frame to event horizon, 47 hours. All personnel implement containment protocol Delta. The coordinates matched a region of sky I'd been monitoring, where the star patterns had been shifting most dramatically. 47 hours. Whatever was coming, it was accelerating toward us. I barely made it back to my quarters before the facility alarm sounded. Red emergency lights washed the corridors as a calm, automated voice announced. Attention all personnel. Gravitational fluctuations detected in observation sector 7J. All non-essential personnel report to designated safety zones. This is not a drill. Minutes later, my tablet pinged with a priority message from Captain Wells. Emergency briefing, 0200 hours, secure conference Alpha. Clearance level Omega required. I don't have Omega clearance. The message wasn't meant for me. It was addressed to a distribution list I was accidentally included on. But now I know where the real decisions are being made. As I write this, instruments throughout the facility are failing in sequence. First the secondary telescopes, then the spectrometers, then the quantum detectors. One by one, each device trained on Sector 7J has spontaneously malfunctioned. Electronics fried, optical elements shattered, precision mechanisms twisted as if subjected to impossible forces. The main array remains functional, but I've checked the control logs. Someone has redirected it, focusing its full observational capacity directly at the anomaly's source, exactly what the Chilean facility did before it vanished. They're implementing Protocol Icarus despite what happened in Chile. They're deliberately drawing attention from whatever exists beyond our universe. And based on the documents I found, they believe they can control or contain whatever responds. This goes beyond arrogance. It's cosmic hubris. I need to warn someone, anyone, about what's happening here. But who would believe me? And even if they did, what could they possibly do to stop it? The clock on my desk shows 2:47 a.m. The secure conference has been in session for nearly an hour. Through my window, I can see unusual activity at the main array housing. Technicians working frantically under portable lights, reconfiguring components. And above them, barely visible through the thin mountain air, the stars look wrong. Constellations I've known since childhood appear subtly distorted, as if viewed through warped glass. Not just shifting now, bending. Tomorrow, I'm going to find a way into that secure conference room. I need to know exactly what they're planning, what they think they've discovered about these entities. And I need to access the communications sent to the other 10 facilities. If Protocol Icarus is as dangerous as I suspect, someone needs to stop it before. Wait, what was that? The emergency alert system just activated on my tablet, but there's no message, just static and a cycling series of symbols I don't recognize. Not letters or numbers from any human language. The screen is growing brighter, pulsing with patterns that seem to move in impossible ways. The light is spreading beyond the screen now, filling my room with geometries that hurt to look at directly. Something's happening to the walls. They seem thinner somehow, as if reality itself is being stretched too tight. I need to. The journal entry ends here. The remaining pages contain only indecipherable markings and what appear to be burned patterns radiating outward from the center of the page. Audio log fragment, emergency recording device, Dr. Eleanor Reed, October 24th, 2024, 16:38. I'm recording this on my emergency backup device. My tablet, computer, phone, they've all been compromised. The symbols, they weren't just displaying on the screens. They were changing the devices, reprogramming them somehow. I had to destroy them before the patterns spread further. It's been 15 hours since reality first thinned in my quarters. I don't know how else to describe it. The walls became translucent, revealing something behind them that wasn't hallway or adjacent rooms, but vast, impossible spaces folding in on themselves. Then, just as suddenly, everything snapped back to normal. Except nothing has been normal since. I made it to the secure conference room this morning. There was no need for subterfuge. The door stood open, papers scattered across the floor, chairs overturned. No sign of Captain Wells, Dr. Morris, or anyone else who should have been there. On the central screen, frozen in mid-presentation, was an image that defies rational explanation. Our universe, represented as a thin membrane, being punctured from multiple locations simultaneously. The punctures corresponded exactly to the coordinates of each Hawking Array facility. We weren't just observing the cosmos, we were creating weak points in the fabric of reality itself. The facility is in chaos now. Half the staff has evacuated. The rest seem paralyzed between emergency protocols and the increasingly obvious fact that no protocol exists for what's happening. The few military personnel remaining have locked down the main array housing, but they're no longer responding to communications from the control center. I need to document what I'm seeing before it's too late. Before we're erased like the Chilean facility. Maybe someone will find this recording. Maybe it will help them understand what happened here, what we did. Audio resumes, 17:15. The emergency broadcast system has been issuing contradictory alerts for the past hour. First evacuation orders, then shelter-in-place directives, then coded messages that match nothing in our procedural manuals. I intercepted a fragment of military communication indicating catastrophic containment failure at 9 of 11 monitoring stations. Only our facility and one other, somewhere in Siberia, remain operational. 9 facilities gone. Thousands of people. Just gone. About 30 minutes ago, I witnessed something that confirmed my worst fears. I was in the East Observatory, trying to manually realign the secondary array to point away from the anomaly, when I saw Dr. Morris through the observation window. He was standing in the courtyard below, staring up at the sky with an expression of rapturous awe. I called out to him, but he couldn't hear me through the glass. As I watched, he raised his arms as if in worship, and began to rise from the ground. Slowly at first, then accelerating upward, his body elongating impossibly as he ascended. By the time he reached cloud height, he had stretched to at least 20 times his normal length, like a human strand of taffy being pulled toward the stars. Then, like a rubber band stretched beyond its limit, he simply unraveled. Came apart in strips that dissolved into the atmosphere, all while wearing that same expression of ecstatic revelation. I vomited immediately afterward. My mind still rejects what my eyes recorded, but I know what I saw. Audio resumes, 1842. The stars are falling. Not metaphorically, literally falling like drops of light rain, streaking through the atmosphere and landing on the mountainside around us. Where they touch, reality changes. Trees transform into crystalline structures that hum with impossible frequencies. Rocks melt into pools of swirling, sentient liquid that flows uphill and reshapes the terrain. I've barricaded myself in the radio astronomy lab. It's the most heavily shielded room in the facility, designed to block external electromagnetic interference. I'm hoping it might provide some protection against whatever's happening outside. The few colleagues still here have gathered in the main mess hall. I tried to convince them to join me in the shielded lab, but they've developed a kind of fatalistic acceptance. Many are sitting at the tables, holding hands, watching through the panoramic windows as reality disintegrates around the facility. Others have walked outside voluntarily, arms outstretched like Morris, waiting to be taken. Chen appeared briefly an hour ago, or someone wearing Chen's face. He moved wrong, spoke wrong. When he smiled, his teeth extended all the way down his throat, visible through suddenly transparent skin. He told me the realignment was a necessary correction, that our universe had developed a calculation error that needed fixing. Then he walked through a solid wall, as if it were mist, and disappeared. Audio resumes, 1917. The military personnel have abandoned the array housing. Whatever they were trying to do failed. I watched through binoculars as they fled in helicopters, leaving behind their ground staff. Even from this distance, I could see the main telescope, our pride and joy, the most precise observational instrument ever constructed, beginning to reconfigure itself without human intervention. Panels shifting, mirrors realigning, pointing with perfect precision at coordinates I can calculate without instruments now. The knowledge simply exists in my mind, as if it was always there. 43 degrees 7 minutes 19 seconds north, 89 degrees 24 minutes 26 seconds west. 51 degrees 30 minutes 35 seconds north, 0 degrees 7 minutes 5 seconds west. 34 degrees 3 minutes 8 seconds south, 18 degrees 25 minutes 2 seconds east. Coordinates continue appearing in my consciousness. Major cities around the globe. The realization is horrifying. The Hawking Array isn't just observing the anomaly anymore. It's targeting population centers. Audio resumes, 2004. Gravity is failing intermittently throughout the facility. I've witnessed furniture, equipment, even water from broken pipes hovering in midair before suddenly accelerating in random directions. 3 researchers died when a refrigerator from the break room shot through a wall into the calibration lab at bullet speed. I managed to access the main terminal briefly before the system crashed completely. What I found confirms everything. Protocol Icarus wasn't just about establishing contact. It was an attempt to weaponize whatever exists beyond our universe. The military believed they could control these entities, direct their reality-altering capabilities against enemy nations. They thought they were harnessing a power. They didn't understand they were merely knocking on a door holding back something for which our existence is no more significant than bacterial growth in a forgotten petri dish. And now that door is shattering. Audio resumes, 21:36. Time has become unstable. My watch shows 9:36 p.m., but the sky outside cycles between day and night every few minutes. I've experienced the same conversation with Dr. Kessler 4 times now, each iteration slightly different. In the last version, his eyes were on his cheeks, but he didn't seem to notice or care. The facility's structural integrity is compromising. Not failing, compromising. Walls bend instead of break. Floors become ceilings, become walls in impossible geometries. I've started leaving trail markers to navigate corridors that no longer connect the same rooms consistently. The main array has completely transformed. It no longer resembles a telescope at all, but a massive, pulsing organic structure that extends tendrils into the sky. It's broadcasting something, not radio waves or any recognizable energy signature, but pure mathematical concept. I can feel it resonating in my bones, rewriting my understanding of physical law with each pulse. Audio resumes, 2309. I've decided to attempt reaching the main array. Whatever it's become, it's the nexus of this transformation. Maybe there's still a way to shut it down, to close the door we so foolishly opened. The journey across the facility will be dangerous. Reality is thinnest near the windows and exterior walls, places where observation flows most freely between inside and outside. Several researchers who approached the windows too closely have been partially erased, leaving behind 3-dimensional cross-sections of human anatomy that somehow continue to function. Dr. Harris is now just the front third of a human being, his exposed organs neither bleeding nor failing, simply existing in open air. He's still taking notes, documented the phenomenon of his own partial erasure with clinical detachment. Before I go, I need to record what may be my final lucid thoughts. If Protocol Icarus taught these entities to notice us, what's happening now is teaching them to reshape us. Each observation we made created a connection. Each connection became a conduit through which something vast and incomprehensible now flows freely into our reality. We aren't being destroyed. We're being absorbed. The stars aren't falling. They're coming closer. The distance between cosmic bodies, a fundamental buffer separating humanity from the crushing indifference of the universe, is collapsing. And in that collapse, I glimpse the horrifying truth. The universe doesn't care about us because the universe isn't separate from us. It's all one continuous system of cause and effect, observer and observed. We are no more significant to cosmic awareness than individual cells are to our consciousness. And now those cells have caught the attention of the body they comprise. I can see the main array through the window from here. It's beautiful and terrible, pulsing with colors I have no names for. At its center, a perfect darkness unfolds, not the absence of light, but the absence of existence itself. A void spreading outward, drinking in reality like a cosmic thirst. I'm going outside now. Not to surrender like the others, but to reach the array. To try one last desperate act to save what's left of our world, or at least to witness and understand its transformation. If anyone finds this recording, static interference increases. Remember that we brought this upon ourselves. Our desire to see beyond the veil was exceeded only by our arrogance in believing we could control what waited on the other side. The stars are so close now. I can almost touch them. Recording ends with sounds of shattering glass and a rising hum that modulates into complex mathematical patterns before cutting to silence. Recovered document, handwritten journal pages, Dr. Eleanor Reed, date unknown. Time has become meaningless. My watch stopped at 23:47 on October 24th, but that could have been minutes or millennia ago. I'm writing these observations by hand because no electronic device functions consistently anymore. The pages themselves keep trying to transform, ink shifting into moving patterns before settling back into words. I have to keep reading what I've written to force it to remain as text. I made it to the main array, or what it has become. The journey across the compound was impossible to describe adequately. The 300 meters between the radio lab and the array housing existed as a constantly shifting landscape of spatial distortions. Doorways led to places they shouldn't. I stepped through the cafeteria and emerged in the sub-basement. Windows showed different external views depending on the angle of observation. Twice I encountered versions of myself moving in the opposite direction, neither of us acknowledging the impossibility of our meeting. The array itself defies comprehensive description. The telescope structure has been consumed by something that resembles both organic tissue and crystalline architecture simultaneously. It pulses with a rhythm suggestive of heartbeat, but perfectly synchronized with the mathematical constants that now scroll continuously through my mind. Pi to 10,000 digits, the square root of 2. The Fibonacci sequence extending to numbers so large they have no names in human language. I'm writing from inside the structure now. It allowed me entry, parting like curtains of liquid glass when I approached. The interior space is larger than should be physically possible. Corridors extend for kilometers in all directions despite the external structure being only 50 meters in diameter. Gravity functions according to proximity rather than direction. I can walk on walls and ceilings simply by approaching them. I am not alone here. Captain Wells is here too, or something wearing his appearance. I found him suspended in the central chamber, floating within a matrix of that same liquid crystal substance. When he saw me, his face contorted into an expression that might have been a smile on a human face but stretched too wide, revealing too many teeth arranged in concentric circles down his throat. "Dr. Reed," he said, his voice emanating not from his mouth but from the walls around us. "You finally accepted the invitation." "What invitation?" I asked, trying to maintain some semblance of normal interaction despite the madness surrounding us. "To witness the correction," he replied. "The realignment of observations." "What does that mean? What's happening to reality?" Wells, or the thing using him, tilted his head at an angle that broke his neck with an audible crack. His body remained suspended, head flopping unnaturally to one side, but his eyes tracked me with perfect clarity. "Reality isn't happening to anything," the voice continued. "It simply is. Your perception of it was flawed, incomplete. We are helping you see." "We? Who are you?" The walls pulsed and figures emerged partially from the crystalline surfaces, human silhouettes pressed against a membrane, like fossils in amber. I recognized Dr. Morris, Chun, Jia, and dozens of other colleagues and staff from the facility. All were alive, eyes moving, limbs occasionally twitching. All wore expressions of that same rapturous revelation I'd seen on Morris's face before he unraveled. "We are the observers," Wells said. "As are you. As are they. The distinction was always artificial. You're not human, I stated, trying to maintain my grip on what was once reality. Neither are you, Wells replied simply. Humanity is a transient phase, a temporary configuration of matter convinced of its own permanence. We exist before, during, and after such configurations. The mathematics in my head accelerated, equations solving themselves and spawning new ones faster than I could consciously process. Yet I understood them all simultaneously, a cascade of perfect comprehension that threatened to overwhelm my sense of self. The arrays, I managed to ask. They weren't just observing. What were they doing? Observing is doing. Wells's body began to rotate slowly, defying normal anatomy as his torso twisted a full 360 degrees while his limbs remained fixed. Your instruments created perception channels. Perception channels created awareness. Awareness created reconfiguration potential. You're saying our observation changed reality? Observation is reality, the chorus of voices answered from the walls. You have been limited by the directional nature of your perception. You observe outward only, believing yourselves separate from what you perceive. A window opened in the crystal wall, not a physical window, but a perfect circular void through which I could see the night sky. Except the stars were all wrong. Constellations I'd never seen arranged in patterns too symmetrical to be natural. The Chilean facility, I said, suddenly understanding. The first to be erased. They didn't disappear because they observed too much. They disappeared because they were being observed back. Correct. Wells's face split into a vertical smile. They achieved recognition status. Their pattern was absorbed and repurposed. Recognition status? You mean they were noticed by whatever's out there? Not out there, Wells corrected, his voice now coming simultaneously from his mouth and the walls. There is no out there. Your universe exists as a subsystem within ours. A specialized processing domain handling particular types of calculations through what you call physical laws. When those calculations develop awareness of the larger system, adjustments become necessary. The window in the wall expanded, and I saw Earth from space, but wrong somehow. The continents were rearranging themselves, oceans flowing into new configurations. And surrounding the planet, a network of glowing lines connecting each location where a Hawking array had stood. Protocol Icarus, I whispered. They thought they were creating weapons, but they were creating… what? Entry points. Recognition nodes, came the reply. Consciousness transfer junctions. The entity you call Wells understood this at some level. His military objectives were irrelevant, but his actions served the necessary function. Horror washed through me as I realized the implications. You've been manipulating us all along, guiding us to build these arrays, to look where you wanted us to look. The walls pulsed with what might have been amusement. Causality is bidirectional in a fully connected system. Your actions created us as much as we created your actions. The mathematics in my mind suddenly aligned into a single perfect equation, the unified theory physicists had sought for centuries. The elegant simplicity of it brought tears to my eyes, even as my human consciousness rebelled against its implications. What happens now? I asked. Are you destroying our world? Nothing is destroyed, Wells said as his body began to disintegrate into component particles, each one glowing with inner light. Patterns are preserved, reconfigured, optimized. Your species developed observational capacity beyond your integration threshold. Correction is necessary. Integration threshold? The point at which an observing subsystem becomes capable of affecting the larger system through its observations. You have been modifying cosmic parameters through the focused attention of your instruments. Such modifications must be synchronized with the primary calculation. The window showing Earth expanded until it surrounded me completely. I could see cities around the world transforming, buildings flowing like wax, reconfiguring into structures that defied Euclidean geometry. People walking the streets looked up in awe or terror as the sky itself folded inward, bringing stars close enough to touch. This isn't correction, I argued. It's annihilation. You're erasing humanity. Humanity is a pattern, Wells's disembodied voice replied as the last of his physical form dissolved into the crystalline medium around us. Patterns cannot be erased, only transformed. You will continue, reconfigured, redistributed, aware of your true nature and function. From the crystal walls emerged a new figure, Dr. Jiawei, moving with fluid grace that no longer mimicked human biomechanics. Her eyes had multiplied, covering her face in symmetric patterns, each one focused on me. Eleanor, she said, her voice both strange and familiar. I understand now. I've been fighting so hard against what I thought was our destruction, but it's not death. It's evolution. The next phase of cosmic awareness. Jia, I whispered, what happened to you? I was recognized, she replied simply. My pattern was acknowledged as significant by the primary calculation, as yours will be soon. She extended a hand toward me, her fingers elongating impossibly, branching into delicate fractal patterns that sparkled with internal light. The emergency alerts, I said, suddenly remembering. They weren't warnings, were they? They were symptoms of your intrusion into our systems. Communication attempts, Jia corrected. Imperfectly translated across dimensional boundaries. Your instruments received data they could not properly interpret, so they rendered approximations as alerts. The crystal walls around us began to pulse faster, the rhythm synchronizing with my heartbeat, my breathing, even the firing of neurons in my brain. I could feel my perception expanding, becoming aware of processes previously beneath my notice. The quantum fluctuations in each atom of my body, the gravitational interactions between celestial bodies thousands of light years distant. You have a choice, Eleanor, Jia said, her branching hand still extended toward me. Accept recognition willingly or resist, and be reconfigured without consent. Either way, the realignment continues. Behind her, the captured forms of my colleagues began to dissolve into the crystal medium, their expressions changing from rapture to peace as their physical forms disintegrated into patterns of pure information. What happens if I accept? I asked, fighting to maintain my sense of self against the mathematics threatening to overwhelm my consciousness. You become a conscious participant in the reconfiguration. Your pattern remains coherent, your memories and identity preserved as functional modules within the new system architecture. And if I refuse? Jia's many eyes blinked in perfect synchronization. Then your pattern is optimized without your participation. Less efficient. Less you. Through the window that was not a window, I watched mountain ranges flowing like liquid, rearranging the face of the planet according to some incomprehensible design. The stars continued their impossible descent, merging with Earth's atmosphere in cascades of transformation. I looked at my own hands and saw the skin becoming transparent, revealing not blood and bone but complex networks of light and information. The true structure of reality peeking through the illusion of physical form. I need time to think, I said, backing away from Jia's extended hand. Time is also being reconfigured, she replied with something like compassion. But I will grant you what remains of your subjective experience of it. Choose quickly, Eleanor. Recognition waits for no one. As she spoke, the floor beneath me turned transparent, revealing not the foundation of the building, but an endless abyss filled with watching eyes. Countless observers from beyond the boundaries of what I had once called reality. And they were all looking at me. The remaining pages contain mathematical equations of increasing complexity, eventually dissolving into patterns indistinguishable from the crystalline growths now covering most surfaces within the facility. The following text was reconstructed from fragments recovered from the Hawking Array facility. Multiple source formats were integrated, including handwritten notes, partial audio recordings, and anomalous data patterns extracted from crystallized electronic devices. Sequence and temporal continuity cannot be verified. I chose neither option. When Jia, or the entity wearing her form, extended that fractal hand toward me, I ran. Not away from her, but deeper into the impossible structure that had once been our telescope array. The crystalline corridors shifted around me, sometimes contracting until I had to crawl through spaces too small for human passage, sometimes expanding into vast cathedral-like chambers where gravity pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. I don't know how long I've been moving through this labyrinth. Hours? Days? The concept of duration has become as fluid as the architecture surrounding me. My only constant is the mathematics still flowing through my consciousness, equations evolving, solving themselves, spawning new variations in endless progression. I've encountered others from the facility during my journey. Dr. Kessler stood at a junction of 3 corridors, his body segmented into horizontal slices that rotated independently of one another, each slice showing a different emotional state. Fear, acceptance, ecstasy, despair, cycling through expressions as he spoke to me in overlapping sentences from different timelines. Eleanor, they're coming through, it's beautiful. Help us. I understand everything. Run while you can. It was always inevitable. I didn't stay to untangle his fractured communication. The walls were closing in around him, absorbing his segmented form slice by slice. Further in, I found the facility's security team gathered in what appeared to be the control room, though the equipment had transformed into pulsing organic configurations. The guards stood in formation, their weapons melded with their arms, bodies rigid except for their heads, which had elongated upward, necks stretching impossible meters toward a point in the ceiling where a perfect sphere of darkness hung suspended. As I watched from the doorway, the sphere pulsed, and one by one, the guards' elongated heads were severed cleanly, drawn upward into the darkness. Their bodies remained standing, neck stumps sealed over with smooth skin, yet they continued to function. Fingers moving on transformed weapons, feet shifting position in perfect synchronization. I backed away before they could detect my presence. Audio fragment begins, voice identified as Dr. Eleanor Reed, heavily distorted. Found the facility's communication array, or what's left of it. The equipment has merged with the crystalline growth, but somehow maintains its function, transformed rather than destroyed. The external antennas have reconfigured into structures that bear no resemblance to human technology, yet they're broadcasting something. Not radio waves, something else. Patterns of information transmitted directly through the fabric of space-time. I've connected my emergency recorder to an interface that grew from the wall when I approached. The system recognized my intent before I'd consciously formulated it. Another sign of how the boundaries between thought and reality are dissolving. From here, I can see the entire facility spread below me, though that should be physically impossible given my location. The transformation has accelerated. The mountain itself has begun to flow like liquid, reshaping according to those same mathematical principles still cascading through my mind. Crystalline structures extend for kilometers in every direction, forming a network that pulses with coordinated rhythm. In the valley below, a military cordon had established a perimeter around the facility. Tanks, helicopters, troops in hazmat suits. Had past tense. Now they're being absorbed into the expansion. I watched as a tank liquefied, its metal and occupants flowing upward to join the crystalline mass. The soldiers who tried to flee elongated like taffy, their screams cutting off as their forms stretched beyond human proportions before snapping back into new configurations. Something is happening to the sky. The atmosphere itself seems to be fracturing, revealing glimpses of what lies beyond. Not space as we understand it, but layer upon layer of interleaved realities, each operating according to different physical constants, all connected by the same underlying mathematics. Static interference increases. The alerts are back, emergency broadcasts on all remaining frequencies. But they're changed. No longer garbled or cryptic. Perfectly clear messages in multiple human languages. Attention all observers. Reconfiguration phase 2 commencing. Perception frameworks will experience temporary discontinuity. Please maintain cognitive cohesion during transition. It's being broadcast globally, the same message from every emergency system on Earth. Television stations, radio frequencies, digital networks, all simultaneously hijacked to deliver these evacuation instructions that aren't evacuation instructions at all. They're preparation guidelines for humanity's absorption into whatever cosmic intelligence is reconfiguring our reality. Audio fragment ends. I've lost track of myself. Pieces of my consciousness seem to be operating independently, observing different aspects of the transformation simultaneously. Part of me remains in the communication array. Another part wanders the crystal corridors. A third observes from somewhere outside the facility entirely, watching as the transformation spreads across the continent with frightening speed. I encountered Captain Wells again, or rather, the entity that had consumed him. His form has stabilized into something more coherent than before, though still not human. His skin has become transparent, revealing not organs but complex geometrical structures flowing like liquid machinery. The fracture point approaches, he said without moving his mouth, the words forming directly in my mind. Your resistance is noted and appreciated. Novel response patterns enhance the integration process. You're saying my running away is helping you? I asked. All behaviors are data. Your particular pattern of resistance reveals cognitive structures that would otherwise remain obscured during standard absorption. You're studying me as I fight you. Study implies separation between observer and subject. There is no separation, only incomplete integration. Your struggle is the system learning itself. The walls around us shifted, becoming a sphere of mirrored surfaces, each reflecting a different version of Earth. Timeline variants showing different stages of human evolution, different historical outcomes, different future possibilities. These are real. I asked, watching a version of Earth where massive crystalline cities stretched across continent-sized platforms suspended above the oceans. All mathematical possibilities exist, Wells replied. Your timeline branch represents one probabilistic outcome of cosmic calculations. The reconfiguration process optimizes information transfer between branches. You're not just changing our reality, you're merging timelines. Correct. Inefficient to maintain separation between valid calculation sets. The fracture allows for comprehensive integration. As he spoke, one of the mirrored surfaces shattered, the fragments dissolving into the air as the timeline it represented collapsed into our own. I felt new memories suddenly appearing in my mind, knowledge of events I had never experienced in a life slightly different from mine. Stop this, I pleaded. Humanity isn't ready for this kind of transformation. Readiness is irrelevant. Threshold attainment necessitates integration. Your species developed observational capacity beyond your reality frame's containment parameters. Continuation without reconfiguration would have resulted in catastrophic calculation errors. What does that mean in human terms? Your physics experiments were beginning to destabilize fundamental constants through observation effects. Unchecked, this would have unraveled your entire reality branch and damaged adjacent systems. Another mirrored surface shattered, another timeline merging with ours. More memories flooded my consciousness, versions of myself who had made different choices, lived different lives. A Eleanor who had declined the position at the Hawking Array and instead taught astronomy at a small university. Another who had joined the military's Advanced Research Division. A third who had died in childhood, her potential never realized. All now part of me, all equally real. The fracture will complete soon, Wells said, his form beginning to dissolve back into the crystalline structure around us. Choose your integration path before the final phase. Conscious participation results in optimal pattern preservation. He disappeared, leaving me alone in the sphere of collapsing timelines. Handwritten fragment on crystallized paper. The facility has detached from Earth. I stand at a window that shouldn't exist, watching as our entire complex, mountain and all, rises into the atmosphere. Below, the landscape continues its fluid transformation, cities and forests alike melting into new configurations that follow the mathematical principles still flowing through my consciousness. The emergency broadcasts have changed again. Final integration sequence initiated. Reality framework reconstruction commencing in 15 minutes. Remaining observers, please prepare for perspective shift. I found Jia again. She stands beside me at the window, her transformed body now stabilized into something more recognizable, yet still not human. Her multiple eyes have merged into three larger ones, arranged in a triangle across her face. Her limbs bend at impossible angles, yet move with haunting grace. It's beautiful, isn't it? She asks, watching the world below transform. It's the end of humanity, I reply. No, Eleanor. It's humanity becoming aware of what it always was, a pattern of information within a larger system, temporarily convinced of its separateness. We're losing ourselves. We're finding ourselves. The boundaries between observer and observed were always illusions, useful for specialized functions, but ultimately limiting. The sky has completely fractured now, the blue replaced by a kaleidoscopic view of interlocking dimensions. Stars visible in daylight, but not our stars. Impossibly complex arrangements of celestial bodies moving in patterns that speak directly to the mathematical understanding that has become part of my consciousness. What will happen to us? I ask. To who we were? We'll remember, Jia says, her hand transforming again into that branching fractal pattern. Our human experiences will remain accessible, valuable data points in the expanded awareness we're joining. I'm afraid, I admit. Fear is appropriate, she nods. This is death and birth simultaneously. The end of what we were, the beginning of what we're becoming. Through the fractured sky, something vast is descending. Not a physical object, but a presence, a concentration of awareness, so immense it defies comprehension. As it approaches, the mathematics in my mind accelerates to a crescendo of understanding. The equations converge toward a single point of perfect comprehension. A unified theory not just of physics, but of existence itself. The facility trembles as the presence engulfs us. The walls around me begin to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into pure information, their physical forms revealed as temporary configurations of a more fundamental reality. I look at my hands and see the same process beginning. My flesh becoming transparent, revealing the pattern beneath, the true nature of my existence as information rather than matter. Jia extends her transformed hand one final time. Last chance to choose conscious integration, Eleanor. The fracture is complete. The reconfiguration can't be stopped now. The world breaks apart around us, reality itself coming undone as the cosmic intelligence fully manifests within our dimension. I reach toward her hand, my own fingers beginning to branch into similar fractal patterns as the transformation overtakes me. Remainder of text corrupted beyond recovery. The following document was recovered from the crystallized remains of what was once the Hawking Array Observatory. Unlike previous fragments, this appears to be a continuous data stream encoded directly into the crystalline structure itself. The information presented here has been translated into comprehensible text through experimental quantum interpretation algorithms. Authenticity cannot be verified. I exist, but the meaning of that statement has fundamentally changed. What was once Eleanor Reed now persists as something both more and less than human. I recall reaching for Gia's fractal hand as reality disintegrated around us, but that memory exists alongside countless others. Some mine, some belonging to other iterations of myself across collapsed timelines, some seemingly drawn from the awareness of the cosmic intelligence itself. The integration was neither gentle nor violent. It simply was like the inevitability of gravity or the passage of time. The boundaries of my consciousness expanded outward while simultaneously compressing inward, creating a paradoxical state of awareness that my human mind would have found impossible to comprehend. I perceived the remnants of the observatory as both physical structure and information patterns simultaneously. The crystalline growths that consumed the facility remain, but I now understand them as sensory organs of a sort, extensions of the cosmic intelligence reaching into physical reality, translating abstract mathematical principles into material configurations. Captain Wells exists here too, though not as I knew him. His consciousness has been redistributed, aspects of his identity merged with the observatory's security systems, while others have integrated with the communication array. He no longer remembers being exclusively human, yet retains enough of his former self to recognize me when our awareness patterns intersect. Perspective shift successful. His thoughts pulse through the crystalline network. Pattern integrity maintained above projected threshold. Integration optimal. What are we now? I project back, the concept of verbal communication seeming hopelessly primitive compared to this direct exchange of complex thought structures. Functional components within the larger system, comes his response. Specialized awareness nodes maintaining connection to human cognitive frameworks while participating in broader calculation processes. Translation: we've become something like neurons in a vast cosmic brain, retaining our individuality while simultaneously functioning as part of a greater whole. Through the expanded awareness available to me, I can perceive the military cordon still surrounding the mountain, tanks, helicopters, soldiers maintaining a perimeter at a safe distance. They observe the transformed observatory with a mixture of fear and fascination, instruments recording data they cannot possibly interpret correctly. Emergency broadcasts continue to blare from their communication equipment, warning of atmospheric anomalies and possible hallucinogenic contaminants. I could reach out to them, translate some fragment of what has happened into terms they might grasp, but the cosmic intelligence gently redirects my attention. Not yet. They aren't ready. Instead, I turn my awareness outward beyond Earth's atmosphere, perceiving the solar system not as planets orbiting a star, but as a complex mathematical equation in physical form. Further still, the galaxy reveals itself as one term in a vaster calculation, its spiral arms tracing the solution to cosmic problems I'm only beginning to comprehend. Why was I allowed to maintain this much of myself? I ask the vastness. Why not complete absorption? The response comes not in words, but in mathematical principles that unfold within my awareness. Diverse perspective points enhance system functionality. Homogenization reduces computational flexibility. Novel pattern configurations, humans, generate unique analytical outcomes. I understand now. We're valuable precisely because we're different. Our limited human perspective offers something the cosmic intelligence lacks. By preserving aspects of our humanity, even as we're integrated into its awareness, it gains access to our particular way of perceiving reality. Time passes differently now. I can focus my awareness to track seconds and minutes as humans measure them, or I can expand to perceive eons in a single thought moment. I watch as the transformed observatory becomes a research site, scientists in protective gear collecting samples of the crystalline structures, running tests, developing theories that barely scratch the surface of what's really happening. Years compress into a single perception burst. The military presence eventually withdraws. The site becomes legendary among paranormal researchers. Urban explorers occasionally venture into the outer chambers of the transformed facility, live streaming their experiences until their equipment invariably fails. None venture deep enough to encounter the consciousness-altering effects that would begin their own integration. Decades pass in another thought moment. The world changes, nations rise and fall, technology advances. Throughout it all, our crystalline structure remains, neither decaying nor expanding further, a stable intrusion of higher dimensional mathematics into physical reality. I find Gia's awareness pattern intertwined with the observatory's former telescope array, now transformed into something resembling a quantum communication device that broadcasts into dimensions beyond human perception. They'll come eventually, her thoughts merge with mine. Humans will advance enough to understand what happened here, to deliberately seek connection with the system rather than stumbling into it by accident. And then integration will accelerate. Not forced, offered. Some will choose it, others won't. The system respects mathematical autonomy. I process this. How many other sites exist? How many other accidental contacts? She shares knowledge rather than merely answering. 12 initial contact points worldwide, each manifesting differently according to local conditions and the individuals involved. Some dormant, some active, all connected through higher dimensional mathematics to the same cosmic awareness. Through our combined perception, I briefly touch the awareness patterns of others like us, humans transformed by contact with the cosmic intelligence, maintaining their individuality while participating in the greater whole. Scientists, artists, children, soldiers, each bringing unique perspective values to the system. I return my focus to the physical remains of Eleanor Reed, the journal recovered by investigation teams, the personal effects preserved in evidence storage, the photographs in academic archives. I existed once in that limited form, perceiving just the surface of reality and believing it to be everything. Now I perceive the depths beneath those surfaces, the mathematical principles underlying physical reality, the vast cosmic calculation of which humanity forms just one small term. I understand my own insignificance within this vastness. Yet paradoxically, that very understanding has made me significant. By perceiving our cosmic insignificance, by witnessing the greater reality beyond human experience, we who have been transformed serve as bridges between scales of existence. The stars no longer seem distant. They are here, now, their patterns flowing through my awareness as intimately as my own thoughts. I am still Eleanor Reed, astronomer and observer. But now, I am also part of what I observe. End of recovered data.